Hey, what's up, everybody? Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Victorious Ones podcast, the place where gaming meets comics, meets sports, meets movies, as well as inspiration. Of course, I'm your host, King Von Jr. You can follow me on social media on Twitter/X at 301 King Von Jr. Of course, this is at the bottom of the screen as well. You can follow the show's Twitter page at Victory Pod 1. I'm also on Instagram at Mr. King Von Jr. You can follow the show's Instagram page, at Victorious Ones Podcast. I'm also the social media producer for Perfect Plex Talk Radio, hosted by a friend of the program, Mike Knox, on Mondays at 6 p.m. And so there, it's quite a bit to get into, with this episode, of course. Especially when it comes to the main headline recently has been the NBA Finals, and of course, salute to Danhausen. You are definitely the consideration for MVP. Like I said, congratulations to the New York Knicks for this historic milestone, for winning not only their third championship in franchise history, but the first one they've had in 53 years. So, even if you're not a Knicks fan, even like myself, I'm not a Knicks fan. Knicks actually kind of went for Spurs, but after game 4, I said, you know what? Yeah, this is the writing's on the wall, right? So I'm gonna give a little recap of that, and that was one of that was certainly the biggest comeback in finals history. Like I said, I'm gonna talk about that. That was definitely the headline for the weekend for me, and also going to go into my predictions for for the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring final tournament as well. Excuse me. And of course, most importantly, this outrage about Jade Cargill having this wardrobe malfunction, and how it just has brought the absolute worst out of people. It brought the complete ugliness out of people. Like, it's just unheard of. It's just unreal. And just how, these fans can go a bridge too far. Right. So yeah, like I said, those things I'm going to cover. And also the Spider-Man trailer. I meant to add this as well. The trailer for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Of course, arrived like the latest one. And for those that are watching by way of Twitter and YouTube, thank you very much. So, so without further ado, first and foremost, like I said, congratulations to the New York Knicks, and their Finals MVP, of course, goes to Jalen Brunson. And so for Jalen Brunson for the series, let's see what he's averaged. He's racked up several, awards and trophies since he's been with the Knicks. But whether it's whether it's the play-in tournament, whether it's the NBA Finals MVP, and congratulations to him. Was this is the gesture he does? I think it's this one right here. I went of course whenever he shoots a three, but yeah, that's what it is. I mean, that's pretty much become his signature, if you will. And so as a matter of fact, Jalen was named the Finals MVP by averaging 32.6 points per game during the 5-game series against the San Antonio Spurs. And I knew that he was going to get it. But one of the things I said, even though hesitantly I picked the Spurs just because I wanted to see Wemby get a ring, but then you had to realize he's got plenty of time on his hands, to regroup, come back stronger and better than before, and I would think more mature as well. But it's just that the Knicks wanted it more. And the thing is, one of the things I always said as well was that it will also depend on what version of Karl Anthony Towns you're going to get, what version of Cat you're going to get, which one was going to show up. And so just because his reputation of being up and down, that inconsistency sometimes, it definitely had a cause for concern. But the Knicks, very much battle tested, battle proven and battle ready, because they have a track record of comeback victories. you know. And I mean, of course, case in point, look at games against, in matter of fact, they even had the Spurs number, when it came to the regular season, like in playing tournaments, stuff like that. So apparently they knew how to crack the code, and and of course also, like I said, because of the previous track record, in terms of making comebacks and things like that, like so when whether it's against 76ers, against the Cavs, I mean they just smoked the Cavs and beat them like they stole something. And then when it comes to the Spurs, it's no different. Like I mean, of course I mean the thing is, initially that 2-0 lead, his first two games, and and of course beating them in San Antonio, right? And also, of course, even though there was a bit of a morale, the morale, the morale, I believe, was definitely shot by the time you get to game three, because of number 47 being there, and that just killed the vibe, right? And of course, San Antonio took advantage of that, that unnecessary distraction, and just making everybody feel uncomfortable and shutting down the city for absolutely nothing. But that's another story. I digress. Um, However, the energy picked back up, the vibes picked back up, because in game four, the halftime performance was Wu-Tang Clan, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, the legends. And it's funny how um, after halftime, all of a sudden, the tables turn. It's like it's like like a flip the switch. It's just like all of a sudden, like I said, just flip the switch. The tables turn, the roles reverse, and all of a sudden, the Knicks rally and have the biggest comeback in finals history. They were down by 29 points at the half, 81-52, and somewhere within the second half, about third, fourth quarter, whatever, Wemby gets too comfortable and gets real disrespectful, and he's trolling and trolling and taunting the Knicks, talking about I'm in your head, I'm in your eyes. So right there, that's when everything just completely shifted, and that woke them up. The Knicks chose violence after that, and so they certainly became more of the aggressor. Just because that became just a major trigger point for them. Somebody to come to the Garden and disrespect them like that. Like, dude, is way too soon for that. Like, nah. Mm-mm. And the thing about New Yorkers is that they're all about being in the fight. They are fighters. They do not quit. They do not back down. It's that New York grit, that New York fight energy that that they have, that resilience rather, and that definitely showed in a miraculous way in more ways than one. And and it just goes to show that you can never ever get too comfortable, never let your guard down. And also it was even you can even say those it was a talking point for a sermon too, is that no matter how far down you are, God can still turn things around and like saying and give you favor to have a comeback. God can redeem the time so that you can have a comeback. So it's never too late. Late in the midnight hour, if you will. Like the song says, God can turn things around. Just when they're at their very darkest, that's when the light can really shine the brightest. And and you have the favor and the platform to to be able to make a comeback. Never put a period where God has a comma. Never put an exclamation point where God has a comma. And never write yourself off. Never count yourself out. So that was the lesson that I got from Game 4. You know, that can be applied not just for the Knicks, but for anybody else in life. No matter where you are, never count yourself out, because, you know, God has a way of bringing you to the forefront, you know, of, of giving you the favor, and the momentum to make the comeback that you need to redeem the time. You know, the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. You know, so that's what it was. You know, and also, you know, and also just it's amazing how, you know, how the atmosphere changes when you don't have you know, we don't have people that are, you know, as divisive, right? And so all of a sudden, like I said, because the fans' energy was up, knowing that, who wasn't going to be there, and also, you know, just that excitement from halftime, it just translated into, the excitement, that motivated the Knicks themselves, especially with them being at the Garden. It's like, yeah, the brightest lights are on us right now. So like I said, the thing is, like I said, what I got from that is, to never count yourself out. Never count yourself out. That God can always rewrite your story. And that showed up in Game 4. And I'll say it like this: Jordan had the flu game, the Knicks had the woo game. But yeah, anyway, like I said, as far as that, the Knicks, like I said, go back to that. So as far as that Game 4, score for that, and of course, the Knicks came back from being down by 29 to winning by 107 to 106, and so that put them in the lead 3-1, and they would not look back after that. So at that point, I already knew for myself deep down the writing was on the wall at that point. I'm like, yeah, there's no lead for Game 6 or Game 7 after that. And even I had to throw the towel and be like, you know what, Knicks in 5, and that's exactly what they did. And so, as a matter of fact, I know some Knicks fans personally who record themselves live in New York after the game was over, and there were a whole bunch of Knicks fans marching through the city, coming from Penn Station, of course, which is coming from Penn Station, which is under, of course, under Madison Square Garden anyway. Like I said, recording themselves walking up the stairs, going through the city, and thankfully nobody tore anything up. It did not turn into Gotham City the way that so many people thought it would be. And I want to see the Knicks parade is tomorrow. I want to say it is. And so yeah. I mean, as far as that, and of course, on Saturday, of course, I went to the Hook and Reel to watch Game 5, and I was there from first to last quarter, to the fourth quarter, all the way to the very end, and to see history unfold was remarkable. Man. Words cannot describe it. And Jalen Brunson was definitely the David in this situation, and Wemby was Goliath, as Reverend Josh preached about on Sunday. And I mean, I was like, yeah. And matter of fact, it's funny how David had 5 stones ready for Goliath, even though he only needed 1, but he had 5 stones ready for him, and the Knicks won in 5 games. And the fact that like I said, the fact that the Knicks won in poetic fashion, poetic justice, because of the fact that when the Spurs won their very first out of 5 championships, the beginning of the dynasty started in 1999 when they defeated the New York Knicks in 4 games to 1. Tim Duncan was the Finals MVP, and then fast forward 27 years later, you know, the tables flip. You know, the roles reversed, the tables turn, and the Knicks beat the Spurs in 5 games themselves. And I believe Game 5 when San Antonio won was in the Garden as well. I'm going to check that again, but it's, you know, like I said, it's just, you know, it amazes me. And plus, this was what the NBA really needed anyway. Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah. Game 5 of the finals back in '99. The funny thing is that took place in the Garden. You know, the Spurs were the away team that won, and whereas today the Knicks were playing were playing on the road. They were the away team and they won. And so I thought that was, you know, very very poetic. And plus, like I said, it's what the NBA needed. This is the reset that the NBA needed. Because of how the ratings were down last year. I mean, they were at, you might as well say, all-time low. But the ratings right here, this just spiked it up. You know what I mean? The script writers knew what they were doing. You know what I mean? So congrats to the Knicks, and it was definitely the morale booster that the NBA desperately needed. And yeah, it's definitely one for the history books as well. And so yeah, like as far as that, the Knicks were certainly the giant killers in this scenario. Because just like how David had victories over a lion and a bear, and he just had enough confidence to know that he was going to get a victory over a giant. And the Knicks had victories over the likes of the 76ers and the Cavs. So that was the lion, and those are the lions and the bears. And the Spurs would be their Goliath, and they conquered in convincing fashion by moving two. So that's it for when it comes to the NBA Finals news. And so now, today, I just saw another trailer. Excuse me. I saw another trailer, for Spider-Man Brand New Day, as we get drawn closer and closer to the premiere. And so this is, I was like, they're revealing even more. We see the Hulk in there. You know what I mean? Like, this is a Savage Hulk in this movie. And and a matter of fact, there's no spoiler alert. You know, they already confirmed that he's going to be in the movie anyway. So it clearly looks like, the Hulk is back, back in rare form. Spider-Man fights the Hand, which is that ninjas, assassins guild or whatever. So as far as that, and I have a feeling that they may have the Hobgoblin in this one. I do know that that Spider-Man does fight Scorpion as well as Tombstone in this movie. So yeah, like I said, I'm more than excited for this to launch, for this to release, and it comes out July 31st. So that's definitely like that's definitely a premiere viewing, if you will, open weekend viewing, and I am excited for it. I cannot wait. You know what I mean? So yes. So as far as that, and then now when it comes to my King of the Ring predictions, matter of fact, the King of the Ring tournament results. Tournament bracket. Here we are. We see that the ruler Obafemi, of course, dominated, just absolutely destroyed Dirty Dom. Of course, that was pretty obvious. What else were we going to expect anyway? But yeah, like I said, as far as that, we saw that the Obafemi defeated Dirty Dom, and then of course we have the young OG Javon Evans, aka the 6'7" kid, going up against Jay Uso. So it's looking like it could be like I said, it looks like it can end up being Jade, obviously probably Jade versus Oba. Of course, matter of fact, like I said, of course, we saw that Javon Evans defeated Seth Rollins, Tala Tonga, and Ricky Saints. So, of course, in the first round, we see that Oba Femi defeated Penta, Solo Sikoa, and Carmelo Hayes. Dominic Mysterio defeated Braun Breaker, Trick Williams, and Damian Priest. Javon Evans defeated Seth Rollins, Tala Tonga, and Ricky Saints. Jey Uso defeats LA Knight, Royce Keys, and Finn Balor. And of course, we also saw that, like I said, Oba Femi defeated Dominic Mysterio. Even though Liv Morgan tried to pay off Danhausen to curse Oba Femi. No, and Liv Morgan went to Danhausen's office and tried to ask a favor of him, and that favor was to curse Oba Femi. Danhausen said, this ain't free. This is gonna have to come with a cost. Human monies, as he likes to say. And Liv just ended up leaving. But pretty sure with Danhausen, I'm pretty sure even he had his limits. He was like, pretty sure it was like, nah, that ain't gonna happen. You have to come out of pocket with that one. And so, sure enough, Oba defeats Dirty Dom. No interference from the Viking man, Brock Lesnar. And so we see that it's going to be Javon Evans versus Jey Uso next week. And, of course, the winner is going to face Oba in the final. And so it's very back and forth whether you want to see Jey Uso or Javon Evans. Because on one end, to see, it's just like on one end, it's just like you really, it's kind of, like you really don't want to see Javon set up too early like that. Even though he's very popular, he's got a lot of momentum and fan support and everything like that. But I think that that stage is going to be a little too bright for SummerSlam if he were to win this tournament. And the reason why I say that is because there's also the wild card of Brock interfering and costing Oba the King of the Ring. Of course, the King of the Ring crown, which was set up, the final match at SummerSlam, which is inevitable anyway. So as far as that, just different scenarios, and of course, at the same time, there's talks of Oba possibly winning the King of the Ring, and so that means that they would end up pulling double duty at SummerSlam. And of course, getting that the Brock match finale out the way, sending him off into the sunset. And then eventually facing Roman Reigns. That means that Oba is going to end up, more likely end up pulling a 2-nighter, right? And so like I said, that scenario. There's also a scenario of Jey Uso possibly winning and going up against Cody as being like I said, Roman's henchman once again, going after Cody for the WWE title. And then there was another scenario of Jay calling audible and turning on Roman himself. I'm like, we've seen that already before. So like I said, just those different possibilities, that could come out of this. And so now when it comes to the Queen of the Ring, in the first round we saw Liv Morgan defeat Becky Lynch. Alexa Bliss and Chelsea Green, Charlotte Flair defeated Sol Ruka, Lara Valkyria, and Jade Cargill. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Io Sky defeated Roxanne Perez, Julia, and Lash Legend. And we see Raquel Rodriguez defeat Bayley, JC Jane, and Kiana James. And so, which leads to the semifinals match where Io Sky defeated Raquel Rodriguez. And then now next week we're gonna have Liv versus Charlotte, and Liv being in there serves no purpose. And there's talks of Liv possibly winning it and holding on to the title until Stephanie Valkyrie is ready. But it's just like that's stifling, so many other plans that they could have. So many other possibilities. Just because one person is injured, and that's not fair to everyone else. That's just my so I would like to see the Queen versus Io, and that would just be for the grabs. No bogus BS finishes or nothing like that. Um, it would be great to honestly. You can't go wrong either way with the Charlotte or even though I'm more of a Charlotte fan, but still, yeah. My thing is, as long as Liv doesn't win it, because it's just like it's funny how everybody had all the smoke for Jade not defending the title enough, but people are just more silent than a library when Liv doesn't defend her title. You know, Liv does more World Cup appearances than she has title defenses. Like, come on now, make that make sense. But yeah. So of course, I would say that those are my predictions, and I know that there are people who have issues with um, the bloodline, having this slow pace storyline. But the thing about it is that the bloodline, they're not all about instant results. They're all about playing the long game, the end game. You know what I mean? Um, they're very methodical in their approach. And this is a different iteration of the bloodline where they're not so interference heavy, where Roman is proven, proving his critics wrong, where he can actually win matches on his own, even though there were matches that he did win on his own, even during his original incarnation of the bloodline, the OG bloodline, right? Um, he's won matches in convincing fashion, even without interference. But it's just that I think the second half of that, um, start to dilute, you know, um, what that, somewhat of what that reign, it, it it diluted the fans' perception of Roman as a champion, right? And that fed into the criticisms of him not being able to win on his own and all this stuff like that. Um, recently he's already shown that he can win on his own. Case in point, CM Punk, Jacob Fatu. You know what I mean? Um, so clearly, like I said, Roman's more capable um, of being, of course, of handling his own business. You know what I mean? And so, and also at the same time, I know that that there were instances even when Roman's original 13, 16-day title run, there were instances where you looked at his match and be like, this could be the time where Roman could lose. There were instances where it seemed like Roman could have lost the title much sooner rather than later. Um, you know what I mean? So I know that like I said, I know that um, that the last man standing match with Kevin Owens was definitely um, that like that in and of itself was all right. Now this is this could be the one. I didn't really doubt too much when it came to Edge and Daniel Bryan. Even though there was a little possibility right there, but even with that, I still still didn't have too much doubt. Even though I found out that there were talks of Cena, uh, where he could have broke the record by beating Roman. But clearly there was an audible call, and Roman ends up winning. And the thing is, actually, no, really, that Cena match at SummerSlam, where Roman was really getting a run for his money, where they really uh, held the stakes up pretty high for that. You know, so that one especially right there. Now that Clash of the Castle against Drew was a certified classic. That there were times where Roman really um, could have got got right there with that one. But actually, you know what? Um, in all actuality, though, as I think about it, I think that once he beat Brock, it's just like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to be, um, like so. I believe that that once he beat Brock, especially at Mania 38, that's where that aura of invisibility became even stronger. That's where the aura became even stronger. He became a unified champion, um, defeated Brock in a rather convincing fashion. And like so, he became a unified champion at WrestleMania. At that, so it's just like, he gathered another Infinity Stone. You know what I mean? And that's when he really became even more of a world beater, more of, the Samoan Godfather type of thing. And then not only the Brock match at WrestleMania, but he really sealed the deal um, with the Last Man Standing match at SummerSlam against Brock. So yeah, I was like, oh, wow. And like that was was really like, oh, he became even more of a quote unquote final boss, if you will. And so when he faced Cody at Mania 39, there was pretty strong chance that Cody could have taken it, but I still believe that Roman was going to win. Matter of fact, my whole goal ultimately of going to that WrestleMania was to see Roman win, and that was best for business. He won, and because that ended up becoming the launching pad for WrestleMania 40, where WrestleMania 40, where Cody was the underdog to finish the story. So that like I said, that was a launching pad for even bigger Mania moment. And plus, plus I wanted to see Roman win at 39 just so he could get to 1,000 days. So that was the impact of the initial bloodline. And for the people who have complaints about the bloodline being around for so long and things like that, one thing that people I think one thing that fans really have to understand is that factions typically are used to pretty much used to prolong somebody's career, and especially when they've had a lot of bumps in the bump card, meaning they initially had a lot of matches, right? And so being a faction reduces the possible potential wear and tear, so a lot of times when you're in faction, it could, it helps to reserve your body in ways that that nobody can even realize. You know what I mean? So as far as that, yeah. So like I said, when it comes to the bloodline, I believe that they're doing that they're doing what was best for business when it comes to these storylines, because it's just like nobody else is really stepping up to the plate. LA Knight was just rambling on and on. You can't even, like, for what? There's no direction, and and it's just like when he's in the same room, in the same company as Roman, he looks like a second-class citizen, and he's been criticized for his promos anyway. Like I'm talking about LA Knight, of course, and it's just like he has catchphrases, but those promos are not world champion level promos. Austin The Rock, they are the measuring stick, measure sticks, the standard, right? When it comes to sports entertainment, face of the company, GOAT status, all that type of stuff, especially when it comes to mic skills. They had their catchphrases, but you understood their promos. They got straight to the point when it came to their promos. And a big thing when it comes to being the face of a company is that you have to know how to connect and communicate, with the audience, and unfortunately, Louisiana Knight kind of falls short in that department by several notches, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? So of course, as far as that's concerned, like that's just my aspect as far as that. But another thing I really want to, of course, another thing I really want to get into is Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill's, wardrobe malfunction, malfunction, her wig, nearly coming off. And salute to her for holding on to the wig for the rest of the match and finishing the match. And she even had a sense of humor about it, right? Now, what was not funny was the ridicule that she faced. What was not funny was those screenshots circulating all over the internet. What was not funny was how there are so many people that just zero in on that moment and just use her as a punchline, as a comedy act, and everything like that. As the brunt of the joke, right? And so initially, Jade has a sense of humor about it, but the IWC, especially the racist part of the IWC, took it to a whole nother level that it did not need to go to, and how people were, just, and it goes back. And the thing is, I found myself defending Jade left and right all over the internet all weekend, right? And Twitter had a field day with it, and it once again it goes to this weird, crazy obsession with Black women's hair. This weird obsession with a Black woman's hair, and her hair is her crown. And women take their hair very, very seriously. To the point where it's like an unwritten rule for you to not touch a woman's hair, especially a Black woman's hair. So like I said, those memes just go back to stuff like that. And for the people that are denying it being racist, those are the ones who like to gaslight you and pretty much tell you that that you're being delusional about it, right? But we see it, and shout out to Black Wrestling, shout out to Matt from Black Wrestling, and on Twitter, even he said, watch out for the people that are sharing, like said something like, watch out for the people that watch out for the people that are sharing that stuff about the wig. And he was right, because a lot of those people that are making those memes, a lot of them are ops themselves, right? And the thing about it is that they resent the fact that Jade, is a strong, confident Black woman who has money, who's very well off, who did not have to go down the same route and go through some of the same things that women before her had to go through. You know what I mean? Jade is already self-made. She's already set for life anyway. You know what I mean? If anything, she does this for the love of the game, basically, right? And her confidence, the way she carries herself, her appearance, the way she dresses, the way she looks, the way she walks, the way she talks, all those things rub a certain, set of people the wrong way. It attracts haters, whether it's online or in the locker room. And when I was looking at a lot of these comment sections, especially, a lot of these comment sections about her hair, man, I mean, shoot, a lot of them things look like plant rounds. I mean, they might as well be wearing white hoods with the way that with how reckless they was talking online about her, and it just, like I said, the thing about it is that, like I said, I talked about it online. Mike Knox, of course, friend of the program. Him and I talked about it on Monday, right? And it's just that, the disrespect, towards Jade Cargill is disrespect collectively towards Black women, so there's too many people who like to get on their high horse, there's this, just having this air of self-righteousness to disrespect her for doing something that they cannot do themselves. You know what I mean? As I say it over and over, the same people who are critical of Jade can't even do a push-up. The same people who are critical of Jade, I mean, like, come on now. The same ones who are critical of Jade, look like cartoon characters. The same ones who are critical of Jade, give off creepy Revenge of the Nerd syndrome, and that's not a good thing. The same people who are critical of Jade have this sense of entitlement. The same ones who are critical of Jade don't know the difference between a wrist lock and a wristwatch. Rest in peace, Gorilla Monsoon. You know what I mean? The same ones who are critical of Jade, just like to type away and just be these armchair quarterbacks, while they're while they stuff their faces with stuff their face with Big Macs, Whoppers, and Krispy Kreme all day. Same ones who are critical of Jade, probably have high levels of high levels of themselves. Come on now, like and matter of fact, like I said, and not only that, but even when it comes to the women, the same ones who are critical of Jade, have terrible wigs themselves, and to the point where to the point where where those wigs are probably sliding off because they're so stressed out, that their man is is cheating on them and probably picking somebody better than them, so I'm just saying, the same ones who were critical of her are jealous and stressed out that their man is looking for somebody better than them. I'm just saying. So it gives off jealousy, it gives off entitlement, it gives off toxicity, it gives off racism. Like, yeah, seriously. And the thing about it is that, like I said, like the thing is, what made this made this discourse even worse, it was just all the racist comments and just, I mean, like come on now, like seriously, it's just like, the people who are outraged about Jade, I wish they would keep the same energy and apply it to their personal hygiene. The same frustration, the same, obsession that you have about Jade, I wish you would apply that same energy when it comes to your personal hygiene and invest, in, like I say, like of course, like I say, invest in deodorant, invest in toothpaste, a toothbrush, shower gel, soap, all those things. So that way you wouldn't be stinking up these arenas and all these events and stuff like that, and being all creepy and weird and out here stalking these wrestlers and all this other crazy stuff like that. And like I said, with the online entitlement and harassment and it just, just vitriol, you wonder why someone like Mercedes, formerly known as Sasha Banks, is so standoffish. I mean, the IWC is what's hurt the product, or rather, that subset, that subhuman subset of the IWC is what, turns people away, is what, they are, fans like that are the reason why these wrestlers had to have, you know, even stricter boundaries and guardrails. You know, I mean, because of how weird they are online, and and just how they like to harass people in public and all this other type of stuff. Like, nah, stop. Like, clearly, you know, these are people who deserve to get punched in the throat. And the things I'm gonna say it like this, you know, the things they say about Jade online, they would never, ever, ever have even liquid courage to say to her face. You know, because if Jade wasn't being such a professional, she would knock their teeth out. Like, seriously, you know. And the thing about it is that, you know, Jade's presence intimidates people. You know, Jade has an aura that you can definitely recognize. You know, and we know who the Karens are in the locker room who can't stand her. That's why as soon as she walked through the door, they knew that their days were numbered. I said it online, and I'll say it again here, like live on this podcast. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, exactly. You know, and the thing about it is that it's crazy how confident Black women get attacked within the same weekend, because the same brand of people who were going at Jade, you know, for her, you know, for what she does in the ring or her hair and stuff like that, were the same ones who had peddled these stupid conspiracy theories about Michelle Obama. You know what I mean? And so if you have a problem with Michelle Obama and Jade Cargill, you have a problem with me. You know what I mean? And there's zero slander for the Obamas on this podcast, zero slander for Jade Cargill, zero slander for Black women wrestlers and Black women, period, when it comes to this podcast. Zero tolerance at all whatsoever. And if you have a problem with that, you can unfriend me, unfollow me, unsubscribe. I don't care. You know. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like I said, as far as that, it just so happened that, you know, that Jade and Michelle had, you know, draw parallels when it comes to the way they've been harassed, you know, by these gruesome subhuman type of people. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, come on, like, you know, like, stop it, get over it. So yeah, you know, that's you know, that's just, you know, just me, you know, like, so, just telling how I feel. So yeah, you know, like I said, you know, like I said, we acknowledge and uplift, you know, the queens of the ring. Plain and simple. And the thing is, Jade is not the first or the last woman to have a wig or extensions. You know, Charlotte Flair has extensions. Rhea obviously has extensions. Have you seen, you know, have you seen how she looked from WrestleMania 39 to WrestleMania 40 and today? Like, come on now. Screams extensions. I don't know how many times Nia has changed wigs. So it happens. Jade's silver hair is to her what Bianca's braid is to her. You know, like, if anything, you know, Jade's silver hair is to her character and gimmick and everything what Bianca's braid is to her gimmick and character. That's their moneymaker. You know, so yeah, like I said, you know, that's pretty much it right there. So on a lighter note, it's time to go into the birthdays, of course. June 15th, the legendary Bayley, Pam Martinez, of course, turns 37. On the same day, of course, the legendary Ice Cube, of course, turns 57. June 16th, Tupac Shakur will turn 55. You know, of course, the legendary Tupac, rest in peace. Of course, the man with the hands of stone, Roberto Duran, turns 75. On the 16th, June 17th, the legendary 27-time Grammy winner Kendrick Lamar turns 39. Of course, former SNL cast member Joe Piscopo turns 75. June 19th, Juneteenth, of course, Zoe Saldana turns 48. Dirk Nowitzki also turns 48 as well. June 20th, Sheer Kelly turns 39. And June 21st, Chris Pratt turns 47. And before I go, I like to give my word of wisdom is that no matter your age, you have to be the weapon God has called you to be to make an impact for his kingdom. And so, of course, I'll always remember that you are victorious because greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. When you put God in the first place, you don't have to worry about being in last place. And also, please make sure to listen to this podcast on Apple, of course, on Apple Podcasts, of course, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else that you download podcasts. I'm also on YouTube, youtube.com/@Von Virginia. Please make sure to like and subscribe for more great content. And thank you very much for listening. And thank you very much for watching. And may this day be the absolute very best day of your life.